Today we are going to recap the 2003 movie Oldboy from South Korea. Spoilers ahead. In 1988, Oh Dae-su was arrested for public intoxication on the night of his daughter's 4th birthday. His friend, Joo-won, bailed him out and they went to a phone booth to call his daughter. Dae-su tells his daughter that he has a present for her and to wait for him. When Joo-won got on the phone, Dae-su disappeared, leaving behind the present. Dae-su wakes up in a locked room with no windows and no knowledge of why he's there or who's behind all of this. He is fed through a trapdoor and gassed whenever his captors need to enter the room to cut his hair, change his clothes, or clean his room. His only contact with the outside world is through the television. He learns that his wife has been murdered, and he is the prime suspect. His captors took his blood, fingerprints, and other items to frame him. As time passed, Dae-su suffered from hallucinations and continued his descent into madness. He tries to take his own life several times, but his captors will gas and revive him each time. Dae-su keeps a journal and a list of people who might have a grudge against him. He starts training himself to fight in hopes that he will use it against his captors one day and tattooing lines on his hand to keep track of time. He conceals a pair of metal chopsticks and uses them to slowly dig a hole into the walls. Over the next 10 years, he works out, follows current events on TV, and creates a hole big enough to glimpse the outside world. Dae-su starts planning his escape and tries to cover the hole, but he is knocked unconscious by sleeping gas. As he lay on the bed, a woman arrives and hypnotizes him. After 15 years in captivity, he emerges from a luggage, finding himself outdoors wearing a brand new suit and a watch. He looks around and sees another man sitting on the ledge. Holding his dog, the man tells him not to stop him from jumping off the building. Seeing another human being for the first time, Dae-su takes the man's hand and holds it against his face. The man asks him, "Even though I'm no better than a beast, don't I have the right to live?" Dae-su smiles and repeats the question. As the man was about to fall, Dae-su grabs him by his necktie and tells the man to hear his story first before jumping. After telling his story of the past 15 years, the man pleaded with Dae-su to listen to his story, but Dae-su ignores him and walks away. As he leaves the building, the man falls on top of a car. Wandering the streets, he avoids contacting anyone, knowing he's a fugitive for his wife's murder. He sees a group of thugs and takes a cigarette from one of them. The thug kicks him, prompting him into a brawl with all of them. Years of training paid off as he manages to take down the whole group. While sitting in front of a seafood restaurant, a homeless man hands him a cell phone and a wallet full of money. The homeless man tells him he was instructed to do so and don't know anything. After inspecting the wallet, Dae-su enters a sushi restaurant and the waitress mentions he looks familiar and asks him if they met before. Dae-su also thinks she looks familiar and recognizes her from a cooking show he watched while imprisoned. Dae-su receives a phone call from someone claiming to be the one who imprisoned him. The caller asks if he likes his new clothes and asks him to guess who he is. Dae-su starts naming a list of people. Before hanging up, the caller left him a clue. Be it a rock or a grain of sand, in water they sink the same. Dae-su asks for something alive to eat and gulps down an entire living squid, much to the waitress' horror. He collapses with a fever, and she takes him home to nurse him. When he wakes up, he finds himself in the waitress' apartment recovering from a fever. She tells him that she gave him some medicine. While walking toward the bathroom, the server tells Dae-su the door lock is broken but warns him she has a knife. Despite the warning, Dae-su goes in and assaults her. The server stops him by hitting him on the head with the handle of a knife. Humiliated, Dae-su prepares to leave the apartment, but the server stops him. She introduces herself as Mi-do and tells him that she is also interested in getting intimate with him but won't do it until she's ready. Dae-su soon decides to look for his daughter with Mi-do's help. They find out that a couple from Sweden had adopted her. He gives up on contacting his daughter and goes on a quest to find the people who abducted him instead. One day, Mi-do receives an online message from a man using the ID Evergreen. When Dae-su comes closer, Evergreen asks him how he's doing in the bigger prison. Mi-do tells him that she has been chatting with Evergreen for some time about sushi. Dae-su can't trust Mi-do because of this, so he tries to find his captors on his own. Based on the taste of the dumplings that he ate for 15 years while imprisoned, he saw the name Blue Dragon on a receipt. Dae-su goes to various Chinese restaurants with Blue Dragon in the name. When he finally finds the right one named Magic Blue Dragon, he follows a delivery man to the building where he was incarcerated and attacks a guard with a hammer. He discovers that the prison is run by a criminal organization specializing in incarcerating people for a price. Dae-su assaults the man in charge by pulling out his teeth with a hammer. The man, named Mr. Park, says he never met with a client who paid for Dae-su incarceration, but he recorded the phone call. Dae-su takes the tape recording and Mr. Park as hostage, while a group of men waits for them outside the elevator. He allows Mr. Park to be taken away while he fights them all with a hammer. When Dae-su makes it out of the building, pulls out the knife and collapses on the ground. A man on the street helps him and put him inside a taxi. The stranger gives the driver an address and reveals himself to be the captor by calling his name. Due to his injuries, he can't do anything but looks at the man as the taxi drives off. Back at home, he listens to the recording that he took from Mr. Park's office. He hears the man and Mr. Park talking about the length of incarceration and the types of drugs that they can use to medicate him. When Mr. Park asks what Dae-su did to deserve a lengthy incarceration, the client tells him that he talks too much. The next day, Dae-su visits his friend, Ju-won, to ask if he recognizes the man's voice in the recording. He doesn't, but he helps Dae-su find Evergreen online. Evergreen taunts him by letting him know that the statute of limitations on him has already expired. Dae-su goes back to Mi-doo's home and starts assaulting her to find out what she knows. During the interrogation, Ju-won calls him about discovering Evergreen's identity, whose real name is Su Dae-ah, and lives in a building across from Mi-doo's apartment. He immediately runs over to confront Evergreen and his bodyguard, Mr. Han. Evergreen tells him that he will kill Mi-doo in 5 days on July 5th, unless he uncovers the motive behind his incarceration. He offers to take his own life if he succeeds. Dae-su tries to attack Evergreen, but the bodyguard fends him off. Evergreen went on to tell Dae-su that he will never find out the motive if he kills him. He further reveals that he is wearing a pacemaker he can deactivate with a push of a button if Dae-su tries to assault him. He reminds him that he left Mi-doo tied up in her apartment with the door open. Dae-su rushes back to Mi-doo's after hearing her scream. When he arrives, he sees Mr. Park and his men assaulting Mi-doo. The men overpower Dae-su and Mr. Park attempts to remove his teeth with a hammer. A phone call interrupts them, and Mr. Han later arrives and offers a briefcase full of money if they leave. Mr. Park agrees to take it and leave, but not before Dae-su threatens to cut off his hand. Dae-su and Mi-doo leave the apartment, and on their way to a motel, Mi-doo sings a song to indicate that she is ready to get intimate with him. After their intimate session, sleeping gas seeps into their room, and Evergreen goes in to leave them a package. When they opened it, they see Mr. Park's severed hand. Dae-su realizes that Evergreen has bugged them, so he goes to a spy shop and asks the shopkeeper to find it. Later, they stop by Ju-won's internet cafe to research Evergreen. They realize that Evergreen was the name of their class back in high school. Dae-su and Mi-doo go to the school to research the 1979 yearbook. He learns that Evergreen was a fellow student named Lee Woo-jin. Dae-su calls Ju-won about him, but he replied he doesn't recognize the name. Dae-su starts asking him about a female student named Soo-ah. Ju-won tells him that she passed away after he transferred to another school. Ju-won tells him that Soo-ah was a very promiscuous girl. They didn't realize Woo-jin is at the cafe during the phone call. Enraged by how Ju-won describes her, he kills him and reveals that Soo-ah was his sister. Dae-su tracks down Mr. Park for more information, due to the loss of his hand. Mr. Park willingly tells Dae-su that he drugged the water to make him more susceptible to hypnosis. He agrees to keep Mi-doo safe while Dae-su looks for Woo-jin. A former classmate tells Dae-su that Ju-won spread rumors about Soo-ah's promiscuity and possibly being pregnant. Dae-su remembers that he accidentally witnessed Woo-jin and Soo-ah engaging in intimate acts. He didn't know they were siblings and told Ju-won about it, just before he transferred school. Due to the humiliation, Soo-ah jumped off a bridge on July 5th. Dae-su finally realizes the first clue, be it a rock or a grain of sand, in water they sink the same. Meaning a comment or a direct accusation can lead to equally severe repercussions for an individual. Using the clues left behind by Woo-jin, Dae-su is able to find where he lives. He confronts Woo-jin, accusing him of killing his sister because he feared people would find out about their inappropriate relationship. He dismisses the accusations and reveals he arranged for Dae-su and Mi-doo to fall in love, with the help of a hypnotist. He shows him a photo album of his wife and child. As Dae-su flips through the album, he sees photos of the child growing up. Dae-su is horrified as he finds out that his daughter had grown up to be Mi-doo. Enraged by what he discovered, Dae-su attacks Woo-jin, but Mr. Han stops him. Dae-su struggles to fight off Mr. Han but manages to injure him. Despite his injury, Mr. Han is still able to subdue Dae-su. Woo-jin gets frustrated and decides to end his own bodyguard and mentions that Mr. Park still worked for him. Back in Mr. Park's building, Mi-doo is presented with a gift box and was told to open it. Dae-su tells her over the phone not to look inside and wait for him to get back. Dae-su starts begging Woo-jin not to reveal the truth to Mi-doo. He kneels in front of him and starts barking like a dog. Failing to make an impression on Woo-jin, he decides to cut off his own tongue. During this scene, Woo-jin holds a handkerchief to his mouth, looking like he is crying, but then it shows he is laughing, struggling to hide it so he can continue to watch Dae-su suffer. His thirst for vengeance was his sole reason for living. Woo-jin tells Mr. Park to keep the gift box closed to spare her from learning the horrifying truth. He walks away and leaves Dae-su with the remote control for his pacemaker. However, when Dae-su pushed the button, it only played an audio recording of him and Mi-doo intimate session. Woo-jin walks into the elevator and gives Dae-su a second chance at life with Mi-doo with the parting words, "My sister and I knew everything but still loved each other. Can you two do the same?" This puts Dae-su in the same predicament he was in. Woo-jin chose to be with his sister. Will Dae-su choose to be with his own daughter? During the elevator ride up, he starts remembering Soo-ah's last moment. Woo-jin tries to save her from falling, but Soo-ah tells him to let her go. As soon as the elevator opens, Woo-jin shoots himself. Now living in a secluded countryside, Dae-su contacts the hypnotist for help to erase the truth from his memory. She tells Dae-su that she initially had no intention of helping him, but the last part of the letter convinced her. In the last sentence of the letter, Dae-su asks, "Even though I'm no more than a beast, don't I have the right to live?" The same quote from the man with the dog in the beginning of the movie. She proceeds with the hypnosis and tells Dae-su his mind will be split into two. The first one is the monster, who knows the secret. The other is Dae-su, who will be oblivious to the truth. During the hypnosis, Dae-su imagined being back at Woojin Penthouse. He is standing at the window looking at his own reflection. The reflection is the ignorant Dae-su, and the person in the penthouse with a grin is the monster. She tells the monster to turn around and start walking. With each step, he will age a year until he reaches 70 and dies. Later, Dae-su wakes up alone in the snow. Mi-do comes over, embraces him, and tells him that she loves him. Dae-su breaks into a smile but slowly turns into a grin, leaving the viewer wondering if it's the monster or Dae-su. That's the end of this recap. Thanks for watching and staying till the end. Please subscribe, share, and like. See you at the next one.